Hi, and welcome back to another episode of DSC's podcast, Charity Questions, where we get professionals from around the charity sector and we ask them the questions that you send in to us. So I'm your host, George Knight, and today we have Rebecca Pooley here with us from RP Connections. So Rebecca, we met a long time ago through DSC actually, and you've helped us many times over the years to recruit for our roles. And actually, DSC, we're quite maybe unique. Our roles don't change that often. We've got a lot of people with long tenures. I mean, I've been here 8 years now. And so for us, it's really important we get this right. And of course, you came through that process with us many times. So we're here today to ask you some questions. Obviously, you've got your own expertise here, and I want you to start shedding some light on how charities could maybe enhance their recruitment. So if you're out there and you're maybe thinking about hiring for some roles, this is the podcast for you, Rebecca. Welcome to the podcast. Hi.
Hello everyone. Thank you for having me.
Great stuff. And if you are watching, Rebecca's there in a lovely yellow jumper in her home, I'm assuming. Is it you at home?
I am home office. Yep.
Nice, me too. Yeah, and I'm in my office as well. So let's kick it off then. You run your own organisation, RP Connections, these days, and of course you're synonymous with charity recruitment. And I'm always seeing you on LinkedIn, and lots of great posts there, lots of great content, and I can see you have a lot of enthusiasm for this. And of course, you'd be the first person I'd go to for questions. And where did that enthusiasm come from? What inspired you to start recruiting for charities?
Do you know, it's a good one. So I started in tech recruitment.
Okay.
So I would recruit for a CRM database, really tech heavy roles.
Wow, cool.
Which was great to learn about recruitment. But I would often have candidates that would say things to me like, well, I won't work for less than 6-figure salaries. And I was thinking, okay, and knowing the money that I was on then, that was a bit of a difficult thing. But the agency I worked for also had some charity clients who needed help with their CRMs.
Yep.
But the fees were lower and the salaries were lower, so no one kind of wanted to work them. But I loved it because it was just a really amazing thing when people's skill sets and people's hearts align. And I loved it. So I kind of accidentally became the tech charity recruiter. And then thought I'm going to take the steps further and go and work for a charity. So that was my goal. So I started applying for some jobs through an agency that specialises in charity recruitment. And they headhunted me and said, come and work for us instead. Do the job that you do.
Yeah.
Which was really lovely because then I didn't have to learn a new sector and a new job. So I did charity recruitment. Was there for a while, and then a contract came up at Macmillan doing their tech recruitment, and I was like, that's just worlds colliding. So even though it was a contract, I took it, had a fantastic time, and then thought, I've seen recruitment from all sides now. So I've been a job seeker, I've been a hiring manager, I've been agency, I've been internal, and that led to RP Connections.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And RP, Rebecca Pooley, your name. Yeah. So RP Connections. And when did you found this? Have you been going?
We're new. No. So our first birthday is in May. So
wow.
We're,
What?
I know. I've done a lot. Yeah.
You have. Yeah. And it's because we knew you before that as well, but it's so great to see you been able to sustain actually your own sort of venture in this space, and it's sort of tough environment. So it just shows the work you're doing. So yeah, your RP Connections now, you and is it obviously like a small group of you, and what impact have you been able to create through RP Connections so far?
So I'll do my little tagline as well.
Yes,
so RP Connections is connecting the right people with real purpose.
Wow,
just love that. That was a 3 a.m. moment of joy. But yeah, so we've been going about a year. I've just looked at the data actually because it's nice to kind of take stock. And we've supported 12 different organisations.
Wow.
Weirdly, they've all sat in healthcare, education and environment.
Okay.
Through no design, and that's just what's happened. So I've got Dawn with me, who's a full-time consultant. I've got an admin lady. And then I have, because I'm connected and I've been in this space a little while, I've got a couple of consultants that do some ad hoc projects for me, which is quite nice, or they bring their own clients and they, we all have a little work together. But the difference is all of us have worked internally in charities. So it just gives a a much deeper understanding of recruitment when you've seen it from both sides of that agency in-house fence.
Yeah, I think you're right, and there's not to be said there isn't great recruiters out there that don't work in charities, but you can tell from meeting you do have that different consideration as well. I didn't know you'd spent time at Macmillan as well, and that would have been an interesting role. And I mean, it's a good example of a kind of a specialist role, because I imagine smaller charities don't have such a specialist recruiter,
Exactly
right?
that.
And they are looking for this external support, which is maybe RP connections and other partners.
Yeah.
So you've got 12 organisations that have worked with you in the last year. Could you share a success story from one of these potentially, if you can? That would be great to hear.
So do you know, it's one of the things, it's a strange one because I thought about this. One of the things I'm most excited about is actually something we're working on now. So it will be a success story, but it's not it's not quite there yet. But the difference being, so this is a private family trust, and they're looking for their first grants person, so their first hire. And we've been able to, really important, because we're coaching right from the beginning of, this is what a job description needs to include, this is what a process looks like. So it's, again, it's not just that agency flinging CVs, it's that real coaching from the HR perspective at the beginning. So that's something we're working on at the minute. The other thing we did 2 weeks ago, because we'll talk about this a little bit more, but there's such high volumes of applications in recruitment at the minute, and saving organisations time when they're doing a full-time job and then you get 291 applications in 4 days. It's a lot. So being able to take that weight off of organisations is just really powerful.
And that's like the reading, assessing, sort of that initial stage.
Yeah. And making sure that then who you interview is actually worth your time. There's nothing worse than being stuck on calls with people that you kind of suss out straight away aren't going to be a good fit.
Yeah. So I know you worked with DSE and before, and I'm not sure if this is your concept, but the team that you were with before, the wild card concept, is that something you remember, familiar with?
Yeah, I do this. Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners about the wild card concept then?
Yeah, because when you've worked for an organisation for a while, and particularly small teams, and that's something I like to specialise with, working with smaller organisations, generally because resource is so tight. But when you know someone really well, I know that what the job description is and what people want generally don't match. It tends to be a bit of a wish list. Or you get that person that, you'll send 3 CVs and they're perfect. They're a great fit, but then you've just got that person and you can't quite put your finger on it, but they'd be great, or they say something that you think actually they're connecting on a more emotive level.
There's depth to
I'm
it.
a massive fan of the wild card, and you'd be surprised how often they get chosen.
Well, I've seen it happen at DSC. We've had people come in and they were the wild card. So I think that's a nice idea actually, where the recruiter goes a little bit further to actually say, well,
and it's the human element, right? So I'm going to talk about AI because we have to. That it'd be silly to ignore it.
Let's go. Yeah.
But that's the thing with recruitment. You need that you need the human eyes, you need the conversations, the stuff that you learn about people. I mean, anyone in the audience listening, is your CV a true reflection of you as a person? No, it's a collection of words that kind of talks about your job a little bit. It's not until you meet people or get on the phone and start having those conversations that comes to life, and robots can't do that yet.
No, you're right, and they will try. And if you have 294 CVs and not Rebecca Pooley helping you out, probably AI is going to throw a little bit of a weight towards that for you, and maybe that is of some benefit, but at the same time we're asking a non-human experience then to interpret what we would be a very human relationship, right? A colleague in a workplace, and that's not easy, is it? AI CVs, you seeing any?
Yes. So there's a real worry with AI at the minute that then people are using it. So you can use it to enhance for sure, but if you're using it to create your CV and your experience, that's a problem. And again, if you're not having that kind of buffer, that person screening in the middle, you can get a beautifully crafted CV, a beautifully crafted cover letter. P.S. I hate cover letters. I detest them. Yep, I shall talk about this. I'm a massive advocate for getting read of them, particularly if AI is being used. So
Well, it's guaranteed it will be, right?
It will be. So I went to the Charity Jobs webinar on AI and recruitment, and 46% of candidates admit to using AI in their application process. So to put that in easy numbers, if you're reading cover letters and 50% of those are written by AI, is the cover letter a fair assessment of the candidates?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to say, right, these days. Maybe it is, right, because they've used AI, so it is a fair assessment of them, because we can see that, and that shows that there's been a kind of, I don't know, a step back from maybe a human effort, right? And look, we're all guilty of this. The path of least resistance. I've written 2 books, Rebecca, and I use AI every day to help me with my writing.
Yep. So this is the thing. I had one of those moments where you just have a moment of clarity. So something we all do now that you would expect every single person to do on their CV, spell check. So if you have a CV with a squiggly red line, you're thinking, well, why haven't you spell checked it? Of course you should have done that. So is AI helping writing not the next evolution step of that? Well, of course you'd use AI to just zhuzh it up a little bit. Of course you would use AI to do your research. So I think we need to be way more open. It's not going anywhere, right? AI is here to stay. So we need to find ways to embrace it and really think about, if AI is the issue, then maybe cover letters aren't the right way to assess people.
So this is, I think this is an interesting point, and I did have some questions to ask you, but I think we want to go down this path because maybe this is going to help people potentially applying for jobs as well. But you said we're going to get the job description right, maybe with you, or maybe internally an organization focuses on that and gets that right. They then ask candidates to apply for the role, and then of course we get all this influx. What do you think, instead of cover letters, assume there is a CV attached, but what else maybe would you be hoping somebody kind of brings to an application, or an organization asks for in terms of recruiting?
So it's really interesting because there's different things you can do, and if you want to be equitable in your process, you kind of need to give more than one option.
Okay, I like that.
In terms of cover letters specifically, so that is an additional step, right? So you might ask for a cover letter, then in interview 1 you might ask for a task, in interview 2 you might ask for a presentation. That's an awful lot of stuff, and so it has to be relevant to the job. And this goes back to my tech days of, you wouldn't ask a fundraiser to bodge a bit of code together to write for a CRM process. So is it fair to ask a developer or project manager to write a 2-page eloquently written emotive reason why they want to work for your business? It has to match the job. So tasks in processes are good. Anything that's relevant to the role. And I'm not sure, unless writing is a part of the everyday job, I'm not sure cover letters are the right thing to be doing.
And I've been in a job 8 years. It's a long time since I wrote a cover letter. Are people attaching them as a separate document, or is it the body of the email? What's the kind of etiquette that you'd expect?
Generally attaching it as a separate document. And it's a lot. So I speak to a lot of people that are job hunting right now, and it's tough. It's really tough. And people are spending hours writing and rewriting these cover letters, and it's quite heartbreaking to think, but they're going to go against someone potentially that's just popped it into their well-trained AI to get the same result. So there's a place for AI in recruitment for sure. We just need to think about what we feel about that as an organization, because what's often happening, there's blanket bans. So you generally see on adverts, anyone that's found to be using AI in the process will be automatically disqualified. But as an organization, they encourage AI to write bids or do research or do that. You can't do that, right?
That's, you can't ban
as a
AI.
policy, organizations need to think, what is their AI policy? Do they embrace it wholeheartedly? Do they not use it at all? And some really interesting things we're seeing now is organizations that say, you're welcome to use AI for your cover letter, but we want to see specific examples of your experience and not generic text. So you're kind of saying you can use it, but don't lose yourself in that kind of
I love that, because people are going to use it. You're using it in work. You're right. Like you're replicating the process. And I think that's a nice reminder, isn't it? Let's make the task or the letter or whatever it is be relevant to the role.
Yeah.
If you're writing appeals letters, maybe a cover letter
Yeah,
actually is
for
perfect,
sure.
right? Sell
Yeah.
ourselves in the same way you would sell, but probably getting them to write an appeals letter would probably be smarter, I imagine. An
Yeah.
example, yeah, for something. I love that. Really good advice there. So we get the job description and we create a kind of process that's relevant to the role.
Has to be.
My last hiring role was head of customer services at DSC. We used to get them to answer tough emails. And in the sort
Yeah.
of survey monkey kind of before they would come to the first interview, we'd have kind of an interpretation of how they handle difficult emails. And that was always a very good indicator actually of where experience came from. If somebody could show empathy straight away and alignment, and yeah, it was a really good insight actually. And that is the job as well, right?
Exactly. It's relevant to the job. So you get a little flavour of whether this person would be good in the role, not whether they can write a page and a half.
I remember having an interview when I was just fresh out of uni for a sales job, actually. And I got through the first stage. The second stage was sell to me. I'm going to call you and you're going to sell to me. And I bombed so hard on it. It was absolutely unbelievable. The poor guy basically had to like limped over the line. Obviously, I didn't get the job, but it was a really good insight, actually. Like, actually, this is kind of, that would have been the job, right? Maybe that wasn't the job for me, selling that product, whatever it was. It was it was good as from both sides, really. Well, I didn't enjoy that, and that would have been my job. So yeah. Okay, so we've got this kind of world now where we're trying to maybe juggle lots of things at one time. It's rare that somebody is going, obviously Macmillan hired you in that specific role, but it's rare that many charities are able to provide that resource. Potentially it's somebody in people, personnel, maybe. So what do you think, alongside with resourceful, getting the resource, are the biggest challenges facing charities when it comes to hiring and recruitment?
Yeah, I think the resource thing is probably the most important. It's timing. It's does anyone on top of their full-time job have the time to look at 300 CVs? No, I don't think anyone does. So being time sensitive is important. I think we all know that salaries are going to be lower than the commercial world. We know this. Generally, it's just an accepted part of the sector. But you do need to get really clever with your perks. And there's, things I'm seeing, unlimited holiday, which is a fascinating concept. And actually people
my wife's charity do unlimited leave.
Right. And there's a little trend of that. And that's really interesting because the data shows when you give unlimited, people take less holiday.
So this is exactly it. So yeah, my wife works for the campaign against living miserably, Calm.
Love them.
And when she joined as people operations, one of the first things she did was set a minimum.
Yes.
So it's unlimited annual leave, but there's a minimum you have to take.
Yeah. Because we've all been there, right? Where you're working away throughout the year and your manager goes, you've still got 3 days holiday you need to take. And it's like, oh, do I? Whereas, I think we all need to be forced to take a break sometimes. So.
Yeah, and you're right. Like unlimited annual leave is a great perk, but it has to be managed properly. If you're sick and somebody's saying, "Oh, just put it in as leave," that's not giving the organisation the right information either.
No. So I think perks, things like pension. There's a varying competition of different percentages. I think anything you can offer. Hybrid working is a huge thing, and we are asked about hybrid working before salaries now. That's how important it's becoming. So I think really thinking about that presenteeism versus collaboration is important, just to make sure. I think that the top challenges in managing the process is time, and then attraction. It's talking about, so if you can't do the salaries, the work, the projects that people get to work on, that's the joy. That's the thing that people can't do anywhere else. So highlighting the work, not just the organisation, but the tangible difference that's going to make to the charity's beneficiaries. That's what's going to draw people to work with you.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear the hybrid thing coming up. I mean, we're entirely remote at DSC.
Yeah.
And I'm moving to North Wales in a few weeks. And I will have to stay working for DSC unless I want to find another income somewhere else, which would be great, right? Write more books. But at the same time, it's like, we have colleagues in Cyprus now, in Devon, all over. And it's been quite unique to see us kind of all move to where we want to live. Like colleagues have gone up to Derby, better kind of work-life balance, closer to nature, cheaper housing, all of these benefits. But it then also means we rely on DSC. as our employer, right? And I probably wouldn't find many competitive roles in North Wales for the work I do, right, as a charity trainer. So yeah, no, it's been something that I've seen firsthand. Actually, it really does get its kind of claws into you. The opposite side, we've had, I think, 1 or 2 people leave to go back to the office, and they miss that environment, actually. But I think that's great because there's lots of opportunity for that out there as well. So we're attracting people with benefits. You mentioned kind of like hybrid working, things like that. What about other kind of, I'm trying to think, cost-effective benefits? Because we had the Wellbeing Conference last week, and we can do an EAP, unlimited annual leave, and all this. But actually, there's some things to be said about kind of what free benefits you're kind of seeing out there.
Do you know the one that gets the most flack, but actually that people secretly love? Breakfast clubs.
Oh, I love that.
So, and I'm thinking, if that was me, and I'm thinking I've got to get up extra early because I'm going into London to the office, and I need to manage this and I need to do that. If I know when I get there, there's then tea and toast waiting for me, and it takes that pressure off of finding time to do breakfast. It actually brings a lot of joy to people, and it's a cost-effective thing, but it takes the weight of the commute, because this is the thing with office working. Generally speaking, it's not the office working that's the problem. It's the commute. If you took that away and said, right, all of you colleagues can be together within 5 minutes, of course you'd do it. Like, hopefully. Like, you like the collaboration, you like your colleagues. It's the commute that's the issue. So if you can make that less painful. So is it that you do flexible hours so people can travel outside of those hours, maybe start at 10 o'clock? But the breakfast thing, it's people kind of think, oh, that's a bit tacky. No, candidates love it.
Claire Warner said this at the Wellbeing Conference last week. She said people kind of look to these cheap free things as a bit like poo-poo them a little bit. But these can be the difference maker.
They absolutely can.
And actually, when we talk about hybrid working, right, DSC made a substantial saving closing our office. Maybe we wouldn't be here if we were paying for a London office and a Liverpool office as well. So actually, some of this stuff can be financially kind of buoyant for us too. So hiring mistakes, I've made one in the past, maybe more than one, to be honest, but one that I remember very sadly, actually. It was my fault as the manager. I hired the wrong person because I didn't have any candidates that I wanted to offer the role to, and it was the most relevant one out of those candidates that I offered it to. And unfortunately, that role didn't last at DSC, and we ended up having to rehire for that later. So my mistake, I think, that I've made in the past is kind of rushing into things and feeling panicked to fill a role because everybody's busier suddenly. But actually, what that resulted in is 6 months of training being not wasted, but at the same time not being optimized in our time, and actually we set ourselves back even further. So that was a common mistake that I kind of, well, not a common necessarily, that was a mistake I saw in myself. Are there any common mistakes that you've seen from people in the hiring process that you kind of want to give people a warning about here?
Yeah, I think it's nodding towards EDI in a very serious way, that people aren't doing culture fits, and actually it should be culture adds. We don't want to do like for like hiring, right? We don't want a group of the same type of person. So I really love that phrase.
Yeah, you nailed that.
It needs to be culture add, and things like removing the barriers to entry. And what that means is just making sure that your adverts are really clear, that you're open to different types of people. Remove the years of experience from adverts. I detest it. Would you rather have someone that's worked somewhere 5 years, they're quite disruptive, they've not got good relationships with people, they do the bare minimum, but they've been there 5 years, versus someone that's been there 3.5 years, they proactively learn outside, they volunteer, they're building connections. Years experience is not a qualification. So I think that what's good on paper is sometimes a bit of a mistake. The interview process does need to be well thought out. And a little tip about scoring. So if you're trying to remove unconscious bias and you want to have a score system so it's nice and fair and you can look back at it,
definitely,
is score it 1 to 4, because people tend to do 1 to 5, and then you leave 3 as a weird neutral number that's a safety net. If you remove that, you're then forcing people to think, are they slightly better than average or slightly lower than average? And it just makes the scoring system a lot easier. So there's a little cheat.
So with scoring, I like that. Yeah. Wonderful.
1 to 4, nice and easy. And I think a mistake in hiring specifically with the process is misunderstanding that candidates are active.
Mm.
You will know when you apply for a job, you don't just apply for one job and sit with your fingers crossed and wait
Mm.
to hear back.
Mm.
You apply for multiple.
Yeah.
So you, generally speaking, if the vibes are right on both sides, you accept the first offer you get.
Mm.
So having a really long, convoluted, drawn out process, and we need to check with the trustees, and we need to do all of that
Yeah.
needs to be done before you start. It
Yeah.
needs
Yeah.
to be a
Yeah.
nice, snappy, quick process, because otherwise it can happen like in your circumstance, where you panic and you think, okay, well, this is the person, I'll have to take them. Whereas actually you would be better off just going, no, let's just do a super quick 2 week process. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
We've got all the dates lined up. We're ready to go. That 2 weeks, yes, it's additional time, but what it
Mm.
saves you finding the right person,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't waste the hiring. There's no disruption in the team.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really important to get the process really nailed down
Mm.
before you even think about going live.
I think you're right. Yeah, and it's the fees are one small part of it, but the team disruption was massive, wasn't it, for my mistake? So yeah, I like that absolutely. So in terms of any other mistakes that you see?
I mean, we're all human. We're all
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
make them in terms of hiring. I think it's really important to do any training with unconscious bias, because we do fall into we hire the people that are like us. They
Yeah.
feel safe. It doesn't mean they're the best person for the job.
Yeah.
Um, and then when you counter that with sometimes, so the wild card issue, so
Mm.
that's more gut feeling. That's
Mm.
just, I kind of know that this
Mm.
person's going to be good. So you still want to be intuitive, but you don't want to be led by that. You kind of want to
Mm.
be led by facts and data in recruitment, not
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, and then I guess once you kind of objectify some of these subjective areas with the 1 to 4, you got your 3s and your 2s, and that does tell a different story, doesn't it? There
Yeah.
as well. So we're doing a scoring process. I'm sure many people are familiar with this. One thing I talk about, which maybe you can correct me on or not, is finding a set of values questions that we would try and ask to every candidate, and maybe they're a
Mm-hmm.
similar question, maybe a little bit bespoke, but generally try and ask a very similar question to everybody. Now, you said about a culture add, not a culture fit. Is that the same for values? Maybe we want a value add, actually, not just a value fit.
Yeah, so a great question for that. So if you've got 3 company values, it is to say to someone, if you was to add a 4th value, what would that be? And that's a really nice, insightful way to see how they view your organization and what they place value on. And that's
Sneaky
great,
question. I
right?
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good one. Just to check you're all kind of on the same level.
Yeah. Are there any questions you see and you think, don't ask that?
No, I think, but providing you're not asking, are you married? Do you have children?
Yeah, yeah.
Which
Are
shockingly
you
still
planning on
comes
having a
up.
child anytime soon?
Yeah, in the last 5 years, I have heard that being
Oh,
said, which is just the most horrific. Let's
yeah,
not
yeah,
go
yeah,
into
yeah, yeah.
that. No, I think that providing they're open questions, I think it's okay. I think you
Nice.
can ask what you like.
Nice. I like it. So we've spoken about getting prepared then, and obviously you've addressed that candidates are applying for multiple roles.
Hmm.
I actually was in a unique position. I didn't apply for roles in the charity sector. I just ended up finding a good customer service head of job, and it ended up being in a
Ah.
charity. So I never came into this like looking for charity roles.
Hmm.
So I guess kind of this advice is broader than just charity specific. But if you were maybe talking to, I don't know, a friend who's potentially applied for 100 jobs and they've got their CV, they've got their cover letter, without maybe looking at this in particular and giving precise information and detail, what kind of advice could you think you could give them from your perspective?
Yeah, so I've got loads of little tips for this. So the first thing, particularly at the minute, I want to say to everyone who's finding it hard job searching, it's not personal. It is not a
Mm,
reflection on you and your
mm,
skills. So what I say to people is, you could be a 95% fit for the job, right? You're
yeah,
perfect. You could add loads. This is going to be really, really good.
yeah.
At the minute, there just might be that person that's 97. That doesn't take away from you being fantastic and amazing. It's just the word I've been using is frantic. It's a
Mm,
frantic market. There's a lot of
mm,
pressure, there's a lot of redundancies. So if you're struggling to hear back, it's not personal. Just keep going and don't
mm,
don't take it to heart too much. some tips to take out the weight of job searching, because that's a lot. The LinkedIn open to work, absolutely do it. So if you
on the
if you
profile, isn't it?
if you want to do the green circle banner with open to work, I fully support that. If you are discreetly looking for a job and you're maybe currently working and you're looking to leave,
not currently employed, putting open to work on my
yeah,
banner.
don't. I've seen that done as well by accident. But you can on
By
LinkedIn.
accident, of course. Yeah, that's
You
a good
can
one.
on LinkedIn click that you're open to work, which discreetly tells recruiters. So what I see then when I'm using LinkedIn to headhunt is I will match people. I sort them by open to work. So I contact all of those people first.
Wow.
So I use that, as do most recruiters, because you're going to try and talk to the people that are open to it rather than not. So just by ticking that button, you're doing a little secret signal to any recruiters that, yes, I'm open to conversation. And you might be approached with roles that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah. And this is why I think LinkedIn's great, because their business model isn't selling adverts. Of course, they do that, but they sell professional services to recruiters and salespeople.
Yeah.
And so are you using is it called Recruiter Navigator or something like that?
Yeah, I do that. So I've got the recruiter license. So things like open to work, that is where I start. That's the first thing. On LinkedIn as well, ignore the number of applications. So on jobs, they'll say 300 people have applied for this job so far. That is incorrect. That number is taken from the people that have clicked apply.
Yes, exactly.
But people click apply and then, I haven't finished my CV yet, or the phone rings or whatever. So the data is false. It's out by about a third.
Okay.
So if you're seeing the number, it shouldn't put you off anyway. If it's a big scary number, ignore it.
They're not you.
Just go for it. I think being aware of the market at the minute, if you see a job that you like, apply as soon as possible. Don't wait, because it might close early. So even if this is going to close in 2 weeks' time, it might close early. So if you see something you like, try and get an application in straight away. Don't sit and wait on it. And in terms of CVs, I've got 2 pieces of advice for CVs.
Please.
The first is, if you have any gaps or any kind of short tenure anywhere, is just explain it on the CV. So you're just making sure that you're not going to be discounted for that person's own prejudice. So, it was a fixed term contract, or I was made redundant from that role, or I went traveling, I took family leave, whatever it is, just an explanation of gaps or short time. So generally under a year is just putting in brackets, just a little reason why, and it warms it up for the person viewing your CV to just understand that, rather than maybe discounting you for no reason.
I think you also just burst the bubble of it, don't you, as well? Like you're saying, well, this is me. I'm honest. Maybe if I can say I was made redundant from a role, well, that's the genuine characteristic I'm looking for in my colleagues, right? So for them to be able to own their situation, right?
And there's absolutely no shame with redundancy. It's the bizarrest thing that people are really worried about it. It's a business thing. It's not a you thing. It's not a reflection on your work at all. So just don't carry that with you. Just pop it on the CV.
I was made redundant from a role, and actually it was a reflection of the success of that team that they were able to make the business decision to take someone out of that team. And actually that was how it was positioned to me. And it was like, oh, great.
Good for me.
Yeah, good for me. Lucky boy. And so I think in some ways, actually, it's not always the case, but actually it's not about you as an individual. And if it is, sometimes it can be because you don't do good a job. And unfortunately, that is the nature. And we maybe look at this a little bit more in our sector, because we're not selling software to banks and writing new software that sells itself every year and growing. We're meeting a base of beneficiaries that can in many ways grow, but in some cases we can't grow ourselves as the organizations. So I think we do end up in a position where it's kind of difficult actually to maybe introduce people into new roles and create new situations. And redundancy, unfortunately, is the difficult conversation a lot of charities are having. Which is really sad, isn't it?
And I think the other thing I'm asked a lot is, should I be rewriting my CV for every job? That thing of tweaking it and making it individual. Now, I have a bit of a cheat code for this.
Let's go.
don't rewrite your CV every time. Who's got the time for this? Particularly if you're asked for cover letters, no one has time. But if you've got your profile at the beginning, a couple of sentences about who you are, and then you go into your work experience. Before that, you want to put your key skills, and they're going to be maybe 10 bullet points of your key experience. But lift those bullet points from the job that you are applying for.
Why not?
Providing you can do them. So we don't lie on CVs, but if it's
we don't
service, we do not lie. Doesn't work. You get caught out and then you're asked to do something that you can't do. So
but it says here you speak Spanish and French.
Yeah, we don't lie. So take those bullet points off of the CV, and that almost tricks the person reading it into thinking you're a great match because they've got that software that we use, or that's that skill and that's that thing. And so whatever they're asking for, providing you can do it, pop it on the CV right at the front. It's just literally underneath your name. It's a little cheat.
We say this in fundraising, and then it's almost like they're marking their own homework because they're hearing their language back, actually.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, right, yeah, no, I resonate with that. And so sometimes we might say, if it's a customer service role, I create a warm environment, but we're looking for somebody to create a welcoming environment.
Nice.
Or just change the word warm to welcoming, and now suddenly I'm reading back my own language, aren't I?
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
It makes a difference. And if AI is being used in any screening process, it will trick that as well.
It will.
But I don't think that's relevant for our sector. I don't think there are any charities that are actually using AI to do the bulk of the screening. She
Rebecca,
says confidently.
You say it positively, confidently, and optimistically. I don't know. When we found out lots of big funders are using it to read.
For bid applications.
I wonder we're a short step away from using it for CV analysis, aren't we?
Yeah, this is another reason why I like to work with small organisations.
Yeah.
Because
fair enough. Right?
It's more people.
But... Yeah, and look, this is why another reason why I'm nice to ChatGPT and I say my pleases and my thank yous so that it can promote me.
I do. I've named mine.
Oh, what's it called?
Chatty.
Chatty, yeah, they are quite chatty, aren't they?
Yeah. Love it.
I love it. Cool. Okay, so candidates, any other particular skills or qualities that are making people stand out in job interviews?
So do you know? So I do volunteering at some local schools with school leavers who are going into the workforce, not university.
That's really cool.
And this is the question I get asked every time: how do I stand out? And it's tricky, right? And I always say to them, you want to be likable and you want to be memorable.
Yeah.
And the kind of 3 ways I suggest being memorable is do your research, properly do your research, but prove it. So what I mean by that is generally every interview you'll be asked, what do you know about us? Or what have you learned about us? If you can quote something beyond the About Us page, I listened to that wonderful podcast you did, I read this thing, or I saw this campaign or that project. If you can insert that, it proves that you are genuinely passionate about this organisation in particular. It's not generic, it's these guys that you want to work for. So prove that beyond just saying their mission statement back to them. Make sure it's something.
I used to use Google News for this. Like go on Google News, search the organisation name, what news mentions. I saw that posted. That's really.
But it's that one step above what other candidates might be doing. So just something that's relevant that isn't on their About Us page. The other thing is to use the STAR method. So if anyone hasn't looked at this yet, I absolutely recommend it. So it's situation, task, action, result. Now, this is for when you get questions that are, tell me about a time when you did this, you led a project, whatever it was, and you need to answer it in that thing. So this is the situation, this is the task that I did, this is the action I took, not the team that I took, and the result was this. And it gives a real comprehensive answer that then you shouldn't need to have follow-up questions because you've answered the whole little thing and wrapped it up for them. So doing a bit of practice of that, of making sure you're hitting the STAR. The last tip, which I'm doing today, is wearing a pop of colour. I'm quite a visual person, so I'm more likely to say, "Oh, that girl that's talked about that thing in recruitment." I'll be the person that says, "That girl in the yellow top."
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's a visual thing, whether it's a
Yes.
tie, whether it's lipstick or a top,
Full face
whatever.
paint. No.
Whatever floats your boat. Just, but it's
No,
that
I love it.
visual
Yeah, yeah.
connection. Because
Oh, that's
I find that
clever.
really
That's clever.
helpful. It's the way that you describe people, right? So
Mm,
if you've met 8 people in the interview and
mm.
you're talking with your colleague and you're going, "Oh, do you remember Dan? Well, which one was
With the
Dan?" Or
flashy shoes.
yeah,
Yes.
with the red
Okay.
tie, with the what,
Yeah, yeah.
it just helps. So again, little, it's a bit silly, but it absolutely works. Just having that visual pop just to
I
help
like
people
it.
out.
No, it is true. Well, we remember the most recent, but also then the biggest impact within that. So yeah, trying to reach that biggest impact if we're not going last is tough, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
a nice suggestion there. I remember one of the most important interviews I did actually was after university, and I was applying for a sales role at Travis Perkins. I was an internal
Ah.
sales role, and my recruiter. I don't know whether they did this on purpose or accidentally. I never found out, but they told me I had to do a presentation. So I prepared like a 5 minute presentation. I
Hmm.
went to this interview and they weren't asking me for this presentation. So I said, I've prepared a presentation. Do you mind if I do a presentation? Thinking like I'm trying to put this in proactively. And then I did a presentation. They loved it. I got offered not the role, but the management of that role, and so I got
Wow.
offered the lead for the team. Yeah, it's one of the most unique moments in my career. It kind of really catapulted me forward. And I spoke to the hiring manager afterwards, and they said, "Yeah, you just blew us away that you did a presentation. We had no idea you were going to do that. And we thought you really took the
Ooh.
initiative." And so I'm there. They're like, "I didn't want to do a presentation. The
That
recruiter told
pesky
me I had
recruiter.
to." Yeah,
Yeah.
and so actually, I think the recruiter maybe made a mistake, got me mixed up with another interview, and told me
Mm.
I had to prepare a presentation. But actually, that ended up resulting in me standing out quite a lot, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you ever prepare people in that way? Maybe it depends on the role, but it was something that worked
Do
out
you know,
well for me.
it's funny because I've worked in agency recruitment for a while. I've seen ex-colleagues that will really prep their candidates. So if they're going to ask this, this is the answer you should give. I have a fairly hands-off approach
Mm,
with interview prep because I don't want to influence that. The same as saying about lying. I don't want my answers to be
yeah,
what
yeah,
candidates give. Um, I'm more coaching on the confidence side and thinking about how you answer it rather than giving people answers.
yep,
Yeah, I think it's recruiters need to, they have a place in processes for sure. I mean, this
mm,
is what my business is, but I
mm,
think you can go too far and you can get too involved.
yeah, yeah. Nice. No, that's really cool. So we mentioned AI. Anything else you wanted to add about
Mm.
AI's role in recruitment?
I think just defining your policy and just
Mm,
thinking about, do you accept it as a cover letter? If it doesn't feel right that people are using it, then maybe the cover letter isn't the right thing.
mm, mm.
So there's been a little wave of video cover letters
Love
as
that.
a thing. It's really interesting. So some candidates really like it because they prefer this type of interaction is easier than writing a cover letter.
Mm,
Some candidates hate it, but
mm,
hate it to the point where they won't
mm.
actually apply for jobs if video cover letters are asked.
Yep, I can
And
understand
I
that.
think
Yeah,
again, if you're thinking about uh, equity and diversity, you need to make it accessible for all types of different people. So do
exactly.
you say, actually, it could be a 2 minute video, it could be a one-page cover letter, it could be a
Yep.
PDF presentation, but opening it up, my only potential concern with that is how do you make it fair? How do you score
Mm,
fairly if you're
mm-hmm.
receiving the information in different ways? But using a score system of 1 to 4, I'm sure there's
Yeah,
a way to
and make
do
it a
that.
small part of it as well. Like not a
Yes.
crucial part of it. Make it the differentiator,
Yeah.
not the reason why. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly that. And the
Yeah.
other thing that I'm seeing huge everyone doing now, and I just love that I can talk to you about it.
Go on.
Um, cover letters. I'm on it. I'm on the cover letter thing.
Yeah.
No, interview questions in advance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember many years ago, DSC being the first charity to say, we're going to give our interview questions in advance. And at the time, it was quite shocking and it was very different. And
Yeah.
people loved it. Candidates loved it. You guys loved it because you got a better quality of
Yeah.
answer. We then started telling all of our clients about it, and it spread and it stayed. So rather than being a fad, it's something that really is improving recruitment. And I would say, go DSC.
Yeah.
I would say about 50% of my clients do that without me even having to suggest it.
As a manager in the past, I would do the same for one-to-ones. Like, these are the questions I'm going to ask you.
Yep.
It's not like a surprise. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. We're trying to have a useful conversation. That's really nice. And of course, I sent you some questions for this pod, right? So we could go into detail on some things. Of course, naturally, it flowed in other directions. But it's something that adds to the value of the conversation, I believe. And
it really does.
Equity as well, as you say.
Yeah, it does. And it goes back to, again, though, the AI thing, because I've seen that happen again, tech roles with Macmillan. So if you had a person that had done the cover letter with AI, you give them the interview questions in advance, they've used AI to answer those. We did actually hire someone who did not have the skills because the interview process wasn't robust enough to test that. So I think if you're sending interview questions in advance, you need to caveat that with, but we will ask follow-up questions or lead on questions, just things to solidify that answer is yours and it's your knowledge. It's
otherwise we're just testing memory, aren't we? Can you read out something you've memorized? Yeah.
And there's nothing worse when you've had an interview and you come away and go, oh, I should have said this, or I should have said that. Like this, give people interview questions in advance.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever had an interview where they haven't done that, though, to be fair. It's like, oh gosh, it's tough, isn't it? Okay, so I'm going to ask you to share how people can connect with you very shortly, but I also think maybe just a last word of advice for first recruiters. Any last word of advice for charity recruiters out there?
Really define your process in advance. And what I mean by that is, how long is your advert going to be? When are you closing? When are you shortlisting? When are you interviewing? Get that all nailed down first, because often people go, oh, we'll chuck an advert out and then we'll work on the rest of it. Just define your process so it's nice and quick.
Yeah. Nice. And what about people applying for roles? Any final advice?
Keep going. Just keep going. Don't take it personally. Don't worry about hearing back or not. Just keep going, because it's just a numbers game at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so are you happy for people on both sides of the spectrum to get in touch with you, both people looking to recruit and people looking for roles as well? Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
What's the best way for them to reach out to you, Rebecca?
So email, generally speaking. So I'm rebecca.pooley@rpconnections.org.uk. We'll share all of that.
Very fancy,
LinkedIn, connect, please. If anyone's listened to this, connect with me on LinkedIn. Tell me that you've listened to it and what you thought. I love it.
Link in Rebecca. She's putting lots of great content out there. So even if you don't have the capacity to pay for any support from a recruiter, you can still get all this information for free, obviously, just from being connected to Rebecca. I'm also sure, because I hassle her and ask questions, that she'll respond to your questions too. So that's Rebecca Pooley, which is Pooley, RP Connections there. Put her in a Google or put her in the LinkedIn search. Any other ways to get in touch with you, Rebecca, or anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, just so if people are thinking about recruitment and need some help, that on our website, we've put all of our pricing on there. So we do different services for different people. We offer discounts for lower income streams. So it's all there. So if people want to look at the website, it's all on there.
Exactly. And I just want to say, I was trying to get Rebecca on this podcast last year when she started RP Connections. And it's very rare that I would go and approach someone that's maybe not necessarily, you're not working as a charity, right? You're working as a private organization representing yourself and your colleagues. But it just hugely resonated with me how you've approached recruitment with DSC. And I just wanted to kind of get you on just to share your kind of story to our listeners. So I just really appreciate you coming on today. And I know from both sides of it, not just the people recruiting, but the people looking for roles, that there's definitely, it's a positive world out there if we give it time to show itself. And I just thank you for unveiling that a little bit to me, Rebecca, as well. And I know you're there to help people if they want you as well.
Yeah, you're very welcome. That's the whole thing, right? Connecting the right people with real purpose.
Yeah, and maybe you are in that kind of super connector category, actually. I don't know. Do you put yourself in that category, or I see people in that in my life?
So Yeah, I get a lot of, I'll be talking about one thing and someone will mention something else and I'll go, oh, I know someone that could do that for
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's a really nice network of kind of independent consultants or small boutiques, and we just do refer each other.
yeah, yeah.
It's a nice network.
Get Rebecca in your LinkedIn connections.
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate your time. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of Charity Questions, everybody. Catch you next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Charity Questions podcast brought to you by the Directory of Social Change. If you want to get more involved with this podcast, follow us along on social media where we announce the guests we have upcoming, and you can contribute your own questions for me to ask on the podcast. Thanks again for listening.